I think there is a mistake that people think developers want to build things. We want to solve problems. And when when there's no problems, then we come up with problems to solve. So you always have to keep your engineers busy, because otherwise we come up with solutions for problems that don't exist yet or are actually not necessary.
Welcome to Stack Sessions. I'm Jeff Keyes, Field CTO at AllStacks, where we explore the intersection of software engineering and business strategy and how AI is changing the way product and engineering leaders build, decide, and lead. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Chris Heilmann, developer advocate, author, speaker, content curator, and moderator of the We Are Developers World Congress. Chris, thanks for being here.
Hello. I'm happy to be here as well. This is good fun.
This is great. You have a lot of big things happening right now. I know World Congress is coming up. What are you working on right now?
Well, right now I'm doing the things we do every week. It's just like the newsletter that's going out on Friday, 200,000 subscribers. Tomorrow is the live show going on, so I'm sending the questions for the guests and the topics that we're going to cover. And of course, I have like 8 different more recordings for podcasts this week. Not going on podcasts, but interviewing people for podcasts. So when you started this, I was just like, oh, I'm about to do the intro. And I'm like, no, it's not my job to do the intro this time. Let Jeff do it. So that's basically what I'm doing. So what We Are Developers does is like we run these events, but we also run these weekly things, and the podcast is going on all the time. And I'm actually going through about 600 feeds every day to look for news and things and people to invite and talk about. And then we put that all on the platform, and then we use AI to chunk those videos and those recordings up into different sections. So if you go to We Are Developers and you say like, what's MCP? Then it will give you a 10-minute playlist of different videos, different content pieces about MCP, and you can learn that way. So that's something that I'm putting most of my effort in these days, because I'm actually wanting people to learn faster and not have to actually go through like 50-minute of video recording just to learn about a different subject matter. And it's very easy to get led astray by marketing speech of like lots of companies saying like, you don't need to understand it. So I'd rather spend my time trying to understand it and then writing documentation for people and articles for people to get into it as well. So I learned that over the years that you learn the best by teaching.
Yeah.
And that is something I never want to give up. So that's something that I'm really excited about, to find things, to poke at them, poke fun at them, and then talk to people about them.
I love it. Well, and especially right now, it feels so much like everyone has so much to learn just to keep up. If part of your job doesn't include just researching just to stay current, you're missing the whole point, and you're going to be out of date really fast. Anyway, I know when we had our prep call, one of the things you said that stuck out was part of the work that dev teams and product teams need to do is get rid of old stuff. Your, I think, direct quote was, deleting is now a bigger skill than creating. You said companies are going to choke on their own AI generated creativity if they don't figure this out fast. So I find that interesting, because you're implying like there's a whole new ways of doing things, and you've got to figure out what to get rid of and how to move forward.
There's 2 sides to that story. I mean, first of all, we have a lot of legacy code and things that actually are not necessary any longer, and need to be still indexed by these agents and by LLMs and by all these AI systems out there. What I found really interesting is that now that companies are actually scraping the web rather than surfing the web, or like going to downloading apps and using things, we just basically send an agent to a website and say like, find out where the trains run from this city to this city. And then out of a sudden we get like, here's 50,000 tokens used, and that's $400 to Anthropic, please. And we were wondering where that came from. Why is it such a big bill? Right. And it's because we've been stuffing the web with like far too much content, not content, but far too much code around the content over the last few years. We've always played catch up with the other more focused environments like mobile and desktop environments, And we always said like, okay, so we build something and then we just put 5 libraries on top of that, 6 different design systems. We embed 500 fonts, and then we wonder why the thing is slow. And now we're actually realizing that instead of just being horrible to our end users like we did before by putting all this stuff on them, like when it's like 5 meg of JavaScript being loaded just to read a text, that makes no sense when I'm on a bad connection. But now with an agent, it actually shows people that it costs so much more to index the websites that we've built. So we should actually think about like getting rid of all the things that are not necessary anymore. I've seen so many companies put in libraries to have backwards compatibility to old browsers, like even Internet Explorer 6, 7, 8, 9, these kind of things. And this is all things we don't need anymore. We have a chance now to rejuvenate the web because of our products, to rejuvenate our products and make them easier to index and easier to read, and at the same time make them easier for everybody else out there. And when you said about the deletion, I've never seen happier developers than when they can delete code. We always say like developers want to write code, but we want to get rid of unnecessary things that we had to use in the past. Every developer heard that big lie during every product placement, which is like, we got to get to the next sprint. We know we are not ready. We know it's not finished, but do that quickly and use that thing. And later on, we give you more time to clean it up and delete it. That's always a lie. You never get the time to delete it and clean it up. But now we have a sensible reason and a financial reason actually to make our content more available to AI and these agents out there. And that's a good opportunity to actually slim down the products that we have on the web, and that represents our company.
So true. And what a great, and software that exists isn't necessarily getting better with age. In fact, it's getting worse. More code just means more things to maintain, more vulnerabilities, more threat surface, more libraries going out of date, more things that have to get updated. What a great opportunity to reimagine this whole world.
Yeah, the helper library that helped you not have to think about different environments like mobile, desktop, different browsers, is the helper library from yesterday is actually a security attack vector of today. There's so much outdated things out there, and if you don't keep them up to date, then basically you will get attacked. And that's one thing, like as you said, like the more code we have out there that we don't look at, and I keep saying unloved code is a bad thing, it's a horrible thing, and you should actually know what's going on there. Which of course is nowadays that we vibe code to things we have no idea what we're putting into our products.
Right.
And we shouldn't be surprised if those things become very bloated then.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the scenarios we had is we were vibe coding up some stuff and actually included a screenshot of a text editor as part of that, and the vibe coding experience just generated a text editor as part of it. Why not? Because we can. It's just crazy stuff. Well, let's dive in. You've been around long enough to watch a number of pivotal changes in the industry. Things that have changed how we do things. But what I want to talk a bit about is the journey of development and the teams. And really, it's an identity crisis. If the developer's identity is tied to building things, and AI is now changing that. AI now has agents that are doing things. What does the developer do now, and what does this mean in the industry?
I think there is a mistake that people think developers want to build things. We want to solve problems. Mm-hmm. And when there's no problems, then we come up with problems to solve. So you always have to keep your engineers busy, because otherwise we come up with solutions for problems that don't exist yet or are actually not necessary. That's why when you actually see any software that's built by a developer, it's like full of features that nobody ever needs but might be interesting in the future. Yeah. Things like VOC or like Discord or these kind of things. Mm-hmm. I have no idea what's going on there. There's so many buttons out there. But the way we were measured was basically like we build products, and the product gets shipped and the products actually get used by people. Mm-hmm. And then we start measuring how people use these things, how in a weird fashion we got into a world where every piece of software needs to lock the end user in and they have to use it. So time in product was seen as a measurement of quality, which was always weird when you're in a developer space, because basically we normally go into a development tool to build something and then we go out of it again. We don't stay in there for like 6-7 hours unless it's incomprehensible. Then it's actually being in product in a development tool is probably not what you want to have. You just want to go in there, build the thing, and then test it out and then try it out. So the way we were measured is like how many features got out, how many, in what sprint did we fix what bug, and these kind of things. And in that regard, the building of the product now aided by AI is much easier. So the big thing that every developer should be using AI for is the annoying tasks, the boring tasks. And the interesting thing is that it puts things on its head. We've been developing, unless you're in an environment where you're a test-driven environment, we build products and then we build the test suites and then we built then we looked at performance, then we looked at accessibility, then we looked at the legal requirements, and then we kept fixing the thing. And for years, I've been telling people that's the wrong way around. Like the longer you wait thinking about accessibility and security and performance, the harder it will be later on to fix the product, because you put a lot of stuff in there that you need to put out again. You put the wrong solutions in that you need to replace by something simpler, and so on and so forth. So the idea is now that actually the skill set of planning code before you're writing it is something that actually is getting much more front and center for every developer. We become more spec writers and test writers and like describers of software rather than writers of software. And that has always been a natural progression as a developer. As a junior developer, you write tons of code. As a senior developer, you write less code, but you actually look at other people's code as well and review code. As an architect or as a lead developer or whatever higher levels your company comes up with, the higher you go up, the less code you write, the more you actually you review what other people are doing, and you actually teach them how to do better and explain to them, like, here's the problem with that, here's why the performance issue, that's a security issue. And traditionally we did that with junior developers, and now we do it with agents. Now we do it with AI products, and we basically have to get into that reviewer mode or that that editor mode much earlier. Much like when you're a writer and then you're a tech editor or an editor, and that editor is what we all become. Writing the code was never the goal. Writing the code was never the thing that actually made us happy or that made us actually fulfillment for the company. Solving the problem and solving the unmet needs of your end users is something that is getting interesting. And I hope that we use AI now to make our developers more productive, so we have more time to plan the thing properly. The best code I've ever written was the one I didn't write, because I thought beforehand what not to do and why is it not necessary.
Yeah, precisely. So what does, as your advice for people that are leading teams, recognizing that the developers need to write less code, need to be thinking more about the potentially writing the specs that are part of that. What's the management advice here? As teams are looking, I'm sure there's many dev manager or a business leader that has a team and they're trying to figure out how to modernize them. How do you guide them in this journey of modernizing their team to embrace this new model?
I think that it feels a bit like going back to the hack day mentality and these kind of things, where you gave your engineers time to actually play and try things out and time to deliver. So you should have like a percentage of the time where they can actually play with AI, build agents, try things out. But at the same time, you should have the other part, the most chunk of the day is just deliver the product that you have right now and working on that. The same way we actually build best practices in development and code standards and these kind of things in the company, we now can start amassing tools like agent skills, like trying out new different models, trying these things out. So I think the most exciting thing for me as a lead is now that you can get your team to become a lab and a delivery group at the same time. Like, you don't have like the cool people in the corner that get there to innovate new things, but people can innovate and deliver at the same time because of the speed that AI gives us to create the tasks that are boring. Every developer thrives to automate things. We actually love to write a little script that solves problems for us. And now we can call an agent, and now we can actually use a new system to build these kind of things. So the automation part is becoming much more exciting. So in terms of leading people, it's just like, make sure that you give them the give them the assurance that the company still needs them, because we still need developers. That the AI is not going to write itself, because it's going to be in an echo chamber and an endless loop of outdated materials if we just do that. So we keep having to feed the machine new information and better information, and this is where it becomes interesting, because the developers become washed out a bit, like the developer role. Like TPMs, PMs can now build things, and it always fascinated me when things like ChatGPT came out and uploaded an image, and then it generated the code, and the app is done now. And I'm like, that's not an app, that's an MVP. That's basically a product. And these are the products that we as developers hated to build. You know, these slideware things, these vaporware things that were just there to show a director of the company that the direction in which we're going. And it's great that non-technical, non-developer people can now use AI to build these throwaway products, and we have time to actually harden them and make them properly industrial strengths for reuse later on.
That's spot on. Well, and you talk about that. How do you see the role of PM changing in this? I mean, you started to touch on that. You're talking about how creating mock-ups. Double click on that.
Well, I mean, double click or slide or whatever, or touch. It's. I think the boundary between a final product or code and creation tools is completely gone now. Like, instead of just going through writing schemas or writing things or writing overview PowerPoint documents, we can actually use them right now to build clickable new prototypes. So I think the craft of like creating things that are just like, let's try this out, what it would work like, is something that PMs can do much easier these days. So it feels like that 1990s dream of what you see is what you get is coming back. But at least it's not nowadays where you have to fight it as a developer, but you just say like, okay, that's your tool, and you can show them the code then, and we can actually do user testing with these kind of things, like if they like the interaction that way, if people want it that way, and developers don't have to write these first steps, but you can actually start building the groundwork for the final product while we go through these iterations of like click prototypes and these kind of things that PMs can build these days. And of course, finding a ways to actually make sure the product has a market need as well. That's the other big thing that PMs have to deal much more about nowadays. Like with software being released much faster, we actually have to catch up with the competition much earlier than we had to in the past. We don't have these grace periods of several months, unless you work in an environment where you also have to have legal requirements. Then there's no way of moving fast. That was the bane of my existence when I worked in large American corporations, that you got these KPIs and OKRs, and you're like, okay, I'm releasing this in the European market, so every 28 days we have a government audit on the thing, and before that goes through, nothing goes out. So you can ask me every 2 days about my KPIs, they're going to be 0 until day 28. That's how it goes here.
Nice. Very nice. Let's pivot just a bit and talk about one of the things that was created because of AI, AI slop. Can you just walk through? We were talking about this a bit before. The slop problem, not the concept, but the concrete version of what does it look like when you see AI slop showing up in code, in specs? What happens, and how do you know it's there?
Well, I mean, you see it first of all because of just the huge amount of things. As somebody who worked in open source my whole life and always worked on like, how do you do a pull request to something so people can actually review it and merge it into the main product, and then you get AI generated 5,000 libraries, and you get a 50,000 line code pull request, and people say like, so why didn't you look through that? You're like, no, I didn't have time to do that. So there's a lot of hygiene of contributing to software has come out of the window now that people just generate things and send them in. And that is so bad that a lot of open source projects started cutting down on their on their bug bounty programs or cut down on contributions. Today, GitHub released stacked PR, so you can actually, when you have a large PR coming in, you can cut them up into different parts and say them one by one rather than having to ask for a smaller PR. So I think that's a counter thing that's already happening. But in general, it's like the AI slop problem is, Simon Willis came up with that term, I think. It's all over the place. Gen AI started it. Like you have YouTube videos, channels full of generated videos that make no sense whatsoever and are just there to actually create clicks, to create rage, to get people to interact with them. And it kind of feels the same with code contributions that feel helpful, but actually are overwhelming. So a lot of times, a lot of attackers, a lot of like the evildoers of the internet are now using AI to generate a lot of code that looks actually usable and hide some malicious code in between and hope that people just merge those in without thinking about it, or have a bot or an agent that actually merges them without thinking about it. And that's where it gets really tricky. The other problem is, of course, when hallucinations, when an LLM tries to be too helpful and actually comes up with random stuff just to say something, rather than just like saying, I don't know anything about that subject, which would be just more honest. In code, that's worse. I mean, AI generated hallucinated code. A big thing has been typo swatting on NPM modules. So basically you have code that comes up with a dependency that doesn't exist. But then malware creators create that dependency, put it up on NPM, and gets pulled in. So they actually force the LLM or overload the LLM to hallucinate, give them a name for a product, and then actually release the product immediately. And that's one thing that is really, really interesting to see how easy it is to sometimes hack these products and get them out there. And yeah, the amount of code that's just made up, or when I talked with Daniel Stanberg from the Curl project on my podcast, he said like he gets all these security AI slop reports of like things that are not even part of the code base, or things that have been in Windows 95 and have not been used anywhere since. Like there's like people that say, I found a security bug that doesn't exist, so please give me money for it. Because I ran a scanner that is 4 years outdated from an LLM that was free. So I think the amount of just overloading and overcreation of code is something that we will have to deal with really soon, because it's just unhealthy. It's not helping the maintainers. It's not helping the people that have to review the code, and it's actually not helping the performance of our products as well. Like. Whenever you have to move fast, you actually tend to put too many things into it because you say we might need them later on. And LLMs have learned that from us and basically just put the kitchen sink and 500 more dependencies in there just to give a to-do list. Or as you said, like you have a screenshot of a text editor and then it gets the Monaco text editor in there because obviously you wanted to build Claude code.
Well, and because it's so literal, and because as the cost of building new code goes down, why not just generate more? With the exception of there's just so much more to handle. But especially in a case where there's just slop, it's a big problem. What would you advise product and engineering leaders? If you were given some concrete advice on some key things to handle the incoming slop and recognizing it, what are some key things that you would say, please do the following?
There are quite a few GitHub actions and these kind of things you can install. People have been writing fending of technologies already that actually says like, okay, have a limit how much code can be put into one PR. Have a limit on like, have a template that people have to follow to submit PRs. That's something that also helps as well because the agent will not follow that template, but humans will follow that template. So that's one thing these are two things that actually help with that. And also teach your engineers to actually enough self-confidence to say no. And say like, no, that's not in the format that we wanted. That's not in the format where we need it. So we will not merge this until you cut it down into a more sensible thing to sort out. Then again, it's the guardrails we had on software the whole time. Like, I mean, you ask for people to not submit to the main branch, but you actually have to have an own branch. You ask people to have a unit test that comes with all of these things, and a unit test that's not AI generated, and basically put some guardrails in there, and that makes sure that people will actually have to follow them. Of course, it hurts your growth. It means you will not be the GitHub 6,000 stars a day product, but it also means that in the end, your developers are not getting frustrated by having to delete lots of like nonsense that the whole day through.
Well, and to the point of instability, if you're deleting large quantities of code, the platform instability that introduces is massive. It just, I mean, there's a whole reason that platform engineering is a thing. And having those common components available, does your AI actually adopt and use that? Lots of great questions. What if you were to develop a healthy policy on AI contributions, for open source, or what kinds of things would be also included in that policy that would extend to include the things you just talked about?
Unit tests, definitely. Version controlling of the components or the dependencies that you have. Maybe have a dependency limit and say like, okay, you can only have like up to 5-6 dependencies, or dependencies 3 levels down. So you're not actually including the whole of npm on everything that you do, or whatever the Python equivalent is.
Right.
I think these are the bits that actually make the most sense, and also the test frame, the testing is I think the biggest part around it. Yeah. And this is a danger that we see right now, because writing tests and writing test scripts has always been a QA engineer's job, and developers hated doing it, and QA engineers also started like, So there's so many tools out there that say like AI will write the tests for you. But that's like saying, okay, we want to see if you learned English, so you write your test so you know that you're English and that you speak English. So that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you basically have the same model and the same engine do the tests and also the product. Maybe have a different agent running on a different model that actually does the test generation. That would help. Yeah. Or like several agents as well that actually argue with each other and find the best solution that way. But when you go that far, then you actually might as well have a human write the tests, because then you realize like we're trying to actually make things, fix broken things that are actually not meant to be broken, because we're supposed to be so much more effective in writing the code, so we would have more time to write the tests, right? Mm-hmm. But again, we just automate these things away, and these are the human parts that actually are taken away. And if anything that we need out there, it's actually forms that make more sense and don't expect you to put them in like an American date format, or these kind. Know your audience and test your things out there. But you cannot stop people from submitting these things. So hopefully there will be an interesting thing that GitHub and Codeberg and GitLab and all these people will come up with, because they're all straining under the amount of content that's being created and being sent through right now. And maybe the idea of like, I found it fascinating when people vibe code things. They vibe code whole apps, and then they put them in the version controlling. You're like, what's the point of that? Like, if you vibe code the whole app and you basically change in the prompt, it will start from scratch. It will delete all the code and write new code. Version controlling is there to actually ensure that parts of your code can be easily changed without breaking. But if you're building a whole packaged up thing and you throw it out on the web, you might as well not version control it. You might as well just create the binaries and send those out. That should be enough. And keep the version controlling local or something like that.
Or version control your specs or your prompts and start there.
Yeah, because nobody's going to contribute to us. I mean, I tried to debug other people's vibe coded products, and halfway through I'm like, why do I do this? Tomorrow he's going to create a new version of it, and everything will be different again. So there's no way to contribute to something that has been built to expire. And that's the thing that is kind of hurting me the most about this. A few years ago, long time ago, I gave a TEDx talk, not a TED talk yet, a TEDx talk when app stores came out, mobile phone app stores. And I said that the idea of an app is the biggest step backwards in software distribution we've ever done. Back in the days, you could buy software on a DVD, and when the DVD was scratched, you had to buy the software again. Then the web came around, and we basically had a product on the web, and if we needed a new feature, we put the new feature in, and the end users got it immediately. The end user was in control. They could also turn off parts of the page. They can make the thing font size 6,000 pixels because they can't see well. They were in control of the software. Then app stores came around, were sold to us as convenience and security, that it's so much easier to install an app than to go to a website and try to understand and figure it out. But what we've taken away with apps is the end user's control of our product. We retained control of the software with apps. And the app stores retained control over the distribution of software. And me as a software developer, I had to pay a company to get people to download my app. And that to me was a huge step back because the web made that possible for free all the time from its very inception on. So now we're in a world where this is even worse. Like as a developer, I can use a text editor, I can use Vim on the terminal, and I can start writing code. Now we actually say like the junior developers, to be a cool developer and a proper developer these days, has to have a Claude Code subscription or a Grok or whatever, Microsoft, whatever other product out there. It feels to me often like a subscription in disguise. Like, I don't want to pay to become a developer. I want to develop and build products that people make money with. Like, I want to get paid to be a developer, but I don't want to pay to have access to the tools that I need to write my code. And that feels like a very strange backwards thing to me now as well. Like, I never learned Java because I didn't want to be a licensed developer with that and that. And one of my first jobs in England was working in an enterprise environment. And there we work with enterprise content management systems. There were like 5-figure content management systems to build websites. And then to use those, we had to send all my engineers to a training course that was another £3,000. So they were even allowed to write code because they had to be a certified XYZ developer. And that to me kind of feels like now as well. Of course, it's great to have AI coding environments and agents writing stuff for us. But if I have to pay for it the whole time, is that kind of taking away the freedom that I had before? Isn't that also limiting the scalability of it?
Oh, such a great question. Well, let's dive into that. Just going through this, there's two aspects of paying for the AI and how to measure its value. In the industry that Allstack started off in the software engineering intelligence space, right now the hot topic is show me the ROI of using AI tooling. It's coming from an executive perspective, like, because these tools aren't free and nor are they cheap. There's companies that we work with where they're spending, upwards of a couple thousand a person. This is significant dollars that are coming each month. How do you know and measure, and what's your advice for people looking to evaluate AI tooling and its success or value on the engineering organization? What kinds of things are measuring the right thing? I commented on some things that people were suggesting. You said, "Oh, if you use that metric, it makes my soul hurt." I thought that was funny. But as you give advice to product engineering and business leaders about measuring the right things, measuring the wrong things, what do you think about it? What are your guidance for measuring the value of AI?
I think we're right now in a space where we're in a phase where everything changes. So a lot of companies will now buy an AI product, get like a subscription to a certain service for all their engineers, and expect magic the next day because that's what the headlines say. Like every startup now made a few millions because they actually did that. I think the first thing is to actually step back and say like, okay, you did that investment. Now give it a few months, give it 2 to 3 months, and see how that changes the processes in your company. See how it makes people more effective, not in terms of like how much code they throw out, but how faster the execution of versions of your product becomes. Because that's the whole idea. It's like we want to create new features, and every company I know has a backlog of so many things that need to get fixed, of so many things that would be great features to try out, but we never get a time to do so. Mm-hmm. So how these backlogs become smaller over these first few months of using that AI product in your company is, I think, a very measurable thing that makes it also useful for the near future. Of course, your engineers can now actually create like a new vibe coded new app and version of, or send out 6,000 agents that people can try out. But that doesn't mean that your main product becomes better. It just means that it stagnates because people are busy with other things. So the idea of like the day-to-day delivery becoming faster and becoming better is the real value, I think, of it as well. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that when I started playing with GitHub Copilot, when GitHub Copilot came out, one of my favorite things about it was that it learned from my behavior as a developer. Mm-hmm. So the way I write code or the other code that I had open around it actually gave me the auto-completion in a way that I was thinking. And that made me realize one thing that always was the biggest issue in companies. How do you ensure a code quality environment in terms of code style? How do you enforce a coding style so people can actually read each other's code, understand it quickly, and actually don't have to worry about somebody else writing code that they can't maintain? And it always failed to actually get people to force them to follow a certain code standard. But with an AI agent or an AI copilot or these kind of things, you learn from all the different people, and when you let that thing run for a few weeks, then you actually learn how people are most effective. And it can come up with a code standard that is then the one that goes into the repository that could be a mix of all of those things. So instead of forcing people to follow the company guideline and only write code in a certain fashion, we can use AI to convert it to that format that's just necessary for storage. But people can write it in any way they want to. Like if you put the curly brace on a new line or not, I don't care, because the tool can do that for me in the interim. Mm-hmm. So I think the biggest thing also is to not just throw AI at people and say like, and now get creative and now do some cool stuff with that. But actually, what are the problems that we have with the issue? Do a cost analysis of where your biggest delays are, where your biggest problems in your product are, what the biggest issues of your company is in terms of people. Like, can you not maintain people? Can you not retain people in the company? Are they leaving every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks? Why are they leaving? Would giving them an AI environment where they can play with the coolest, newest tools at the same time as doing their job, keep them in the company? That would be the interesting bit. And this is, of course, where we talked about this in the call yesterday, where the whole media right now around the AI world is like everybody can be a developer, mm-hmm. everybody can be an entrepreneur, everybody can build that one app that Google is going to buy tomorrow, and then you can go on the beach and be happy. And it's not the way. It's like there's a few Cinderella stories, of course, successful things out there. But in essence, we have to find a way to actually use that very expensive and very powerful thing that we have with AI and use it to make our day-to-day lives easier as developers in the company, and use it for our product to become better for the end users out there, and not just for the sake of using AI. There's so many people that come up to me and say like, my boss asked me to do something with AI now. What can I do to impress him? And I'm like, how wasteful is this? Like, nobody did an analysis of what the problems are to solve. And as I said, if you don't have a problem to solve, we will come up with problems to solve.
Yeah, exactly. We have so much more content I wish we could get through, but we are out of time. Chris, this is awesome. Let's hit a couple of quick topics. So Uh, what should people know about you and things that you're working on right now? What's exciting that they should follow you about?
I mean, I got the podcast Coffee with Developers, it's called, and
Hmm.
where I bring in lots of leaders, lots of interesting developers, and basically I look at things for the newsletter. Newsletter is called Dev Digest. We are developers. Subscribe to that one as well because I'm put a lot of effort into that, and pressing that button every Friday with like 200,000 subscribers scares me every Friday. So it's good fun to do these kind of things. And and of course, I'm working a lot on planning the conferences that we do. The We Are Developers World Congress in July in Berlin. And as we're mental, we also do one in America this year. So, I mean, to give you the idea of the size of the Congress, it's 15,000 people, it's 600 speakers, it's 9 stages, and I got over 3,000 submissions from different people that wanted to talk that I had to go through with my team of experts that look into it as well to actually weigh them and actually then contact all of the speakers and get them in and actually do that. At the end of the Congress, we got 4,500 hours of HD TV footage of each of those talks that we have to turn into something consumable on the web. In the years before I joined the company, we did that by hand. So it took us about 7 months to actually get all the videos out.
Mm.
When I joined, I wrote a 50-line PHP script to actually convert all of these things and roll them out. So we released the 4,500, the 600 talks within 2 weeks.
Wow.
So that's the kind of optimization stuff that I have fun playing with right now. So in September, we're coming to San Jose in the Silicon Valley, or just outside of the Silicon Valley, or the original Silicon Valley.
Hmm.
And we're going to do a 10,000 people conference there as well in a certain size. And to me, the first developer conference of that size in America. I mean, I lived in America, I worked in America a lot, and conferences were always like, yeah, either salesy people or it was a specialist conference with like 300 developers or 400 developers. This is going to be a developer event, like not like we just get 15,000 random people in. We have developers that can talk to business leaders and other people, and we have a lot of good speakers already lined up. And it fascinates me to see how many people get really excited about this. And we're going to be in November in India doing another one of those congressy things. We can't call them congress because that's a name in India that is politically
Mm.
used, whatever. But yeah, we have these 3 conferences this year. I'll be in the Silicon Valley as well for AgentCon in 4th of May. Which I haven't been in a while because when I joined Microsoft, I always went to Seattle. So it will be fun to see what Mountain View looks like now, 9 years later, what changed. And we're going to be at AgentCon talking, doing recordings there for the Congress. And of course, the CFP for America is open. So if you're a speaker or if you want to speak at that event, you can actually send a paper in. Also for India. And we also have guest people on our magazine the guest writers that we're looking forward to. And if you have a video platform, when you actually have a development feed, you can get that included in We Are Developers as well. Because as I said, we have this learning platform where basically when you talked about WebMCP, it will show up in a playlist when people want to learn about WebMCP. It will not like that people have to watch your video and try to find it. So it's a great way to learn things and also a great way to get your content out there. So these are the things that keep me busy, and of course trying to keep up with all the models out there that are released every week. And yeah, I mean, I'm a big security fan as well, and it just fascinates me the amount of like whack-a-mole you have to do with security releases right now is quite incredible as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what I'm working on. So you can meet me on social media on Blue Sky and on Mastodon. ChristianHeilmann.com is my blog since 2005, and that's going to stay as well. I fell for a phishing email, so I don't have access to X anymore. And I tried to ask them 15 times already to get access again, but to no avail. So I'm not too unhappy about it. I had a huge following there. It was a great platform. But yeah, right now it's like I can't access it. But what can you do? I'd rather write more blog posts and write more newsletters
Right.
than to
Right.
spend times arguing with people on the internet who are wrong.
Well, what a pleasure, Chris. Thank you for taking time with us. I appreciate the advice. This has been another Stack Sessions. I'm Jeff Keyes. Look for Chris. Join the newsletter and follow Chris on a blog. Come to the World Congress, the World Developer We Are Developers World Congress. Sorry, I'll get that right yet. It's a mouthful.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
But that will be an amazing event. That event's not if for dev managers, dev leaders, product leaders as well. That's not just developers. Is that correct?
We don't discriminate at all. Like you can even HR people are allowed. It's we basically we allow everybody in the audience who wants to come. But if you want to meet developers, it's a great place to go. Like, and that means PMs, that means TPMs, because a lot of we couldn't cover it this time, but there's a lot of fluent movement right now in our market. Like a lot of companies want their developers to become PMs and PMs to become more developer-y. So it's going to be an interesting conversation between all of them. So we have a tech leader stage, which is mostly like C-level people and tech leaders, and we have technical deep dive stages, and the main stage is like keynotes from like super exciting people. And we had like the inventor of the web there. We have John Romero almost all the time, the guy who wrote Doom, and like GitHub released all the AI stuff at our event. So there might be interesting bits to go to. And there's a Code 100 challenge at the end of it, which is a live coding competition on stage where you basically have to code against each other on time. And my job is to come up with all the challenges of that one, which is challenging because it's independent of programming language. So I'm still wrecking my brain what to do this year, but one of them is already done. So
very nice. Pleasure. Thanks for spending time with us, and look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks, Chris.
Cool. See you soon.